Okay, this is a quick video on how to measure your firearm to determine stitch lines. I'm using a blue gun, but the same thing would apply with a regular firearm. Measure the width of the slide. This is a PPK, Walther PPK. It has a tapered slide, so I'm going to measure the widest part of the slide, which gives me 26.79 inches. I'm going to write that down in my upper right hand corner. My dust cover, which is this portion right here, that's the narrowest part. I'm going to measure that. That gives me 20.45 inches. I'm going to measure the frame, which is wider than the slide in the dust cover, and that's going to give me 27.95 inches. Then I'm going to measure the trigger guard, and that's going to give me 15.58 inches. Okay, so then, and that's in millimeters. I write all that down. I divide all of those by 2. Then, on the width of the slide, because I have to add the thickness of the leather in, I'm going to add 3.18 millimeters to that. So do the math. That's going to be 16.61 millimeters on the slide. So then I'm going to take my caliper and I'm going to run that to 16.61. I'm going to try. I'm going to lock that so it doesn't move. From the outside line of my stitch line, I'm going to mark that there. I'm going to mark this here. So I have 2 points. I'm going to take my ruler, mark that. That is my outside stitch line. That's the slide side of the stitch line. I'm going to do the same thing with the dust cover. The dust cover is 10.17. I'm going to do it from the furthest point out, 10.17, 10.17. The frame is 14.01. I'm going to mark that. And the trigger guard is 7.75 on this gun I'm talking about. Yours is going to be different. I'm going to mark the outside of the trigger guard. Now, in order to have proper grip clearance, you need to be able to fit your fingers in there. So I'm going to mark this one at 7/8 of an inch, so I have adequate grip clearance, and that's going to be about the point where the grip and the frame start to scallop inward. My rule of thumb is 7/8 of an inch, or I'm sorry, 1 inch. I'm going to mark that off square. And now I'm going to take my tool set and use those pieces to mark my stitch line. Okay. It can't be right. It'd be like this. Okay, that's my stitch line for my holster. Now, because I wear my firearm at 3 o'clock on my hip, and ideally canted is determined if your belt is a parallel line and you want to be able to achieve a shooting grip with the gun in the holster, you have to consider where you wear it on your person, and so you don't break your wrist, so your wrist is straight like that. So, ideally, and it really depends on the individual, if you are young, trim, and slim, your belt is parallel to the ground. Realistically, though, your belt is going to be like, sort of like this, because of your waist, where you wear your belt on your waist. So, I want to do, ideally, at 3 o'clock, I'm going to do somewhere between 0 and 5 degrees. So that's what this square head compass is good for. You could go up to 10 degrees without too much trouble. That's what this square head compass is all about, is it helps you work those angles. Okay, so if I have it at 5 degrees, I'm going to set this at 5 degrees. Use the outside border of my paper, and I want to intersect this point so I have good grip clearance, and draw my line across there. I can turn that around, draw my line across there. Okay, so now this is the top of your belt. This is the top of your belt. So now I wear an 1.5 inch belt, and because the muzzle on this is kind of square and blocky, you want to be able to come out here. So when the leather bends here at the seam, if it's too sharp a bend, your belt loop is too close, it'll actually create a kink in the leather and prohibit the gun from coming out easily. That makes sense. So for me, I'm going to go out 1.25 inches. Now let's go out 1.25 inches. We'll do that, 1.25 inches. And on the trigger guard side, I'm going to go out 1 inch. Okay, now that inch is going to be the inside of my belt loop. And because my orientation of my paper is a little bit off here. Okay, so now I'm going to take this tool, and if that's the inside of my belt, this is my belt hole. I'm going to mark that. I'm going to mark that. I'm going to go around like this. So now I know about where my belt loop is going to be. And because I chose that angle, I'm going to have plenty of room on this side and plenty of room on this side, so when the holster bows around your body, it won't pinch it. And I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about in a second. All right, so now I want to draw the rest of the face of the holster, so the mouth of the holster, and I want a nice pleasing shape, but I don't want to protrude into the grip area. So that's what these are for. If you want to do a throat piece on the front of the holster, that's fine. You can also use it for that. Back off about 1/8 inch. And there's your front. Okay. Since I use this curve, I can use that curve as well to continue those same sweeping sort of lines on the holster. And this is going to come out like this, like this. Okay, so from here, if I want to continue that same sweeping line, so the front of my holster is going to be like this and then out like so. So I maintain my grip clearance. All right. I always run my leather 1/8 inch past my muzzle. Since you have a threaded barrel on yours, I would highly suggest running it at least 1/8 inch past the end of your threaded barrel. Otherwise, it's going to wear a hole in your pants. Okay. When I'm stitching, I like to have at least 2 stitches on the wing. So I'm going to come out here about 3/8 inch or so and make my curve. I'm going to do that same thing on the back side, and this is not exactly measured, this is eyeballing it, you know. And then really it kind of, when it comes to holster making, it's what looks attractive to you. Now I use this curve here and here. I can also use that same curve here and here, so it maintains that same sort of geometry with the throat and the sides of the holster. Human eye, we look for that geometry. That's what looks attractive to us. Now, a lot of people use sweat guards to keep the holster from poking you, all those sorts of things. That's what the French curve is for. I don't go all the way up past it. I actually stay somewhere in here for my sweat guard, and I want to make sure that I'm clear of the magazine release button. So I'll do like that. I'm going to come out here and do it a little bit wider in the front, because if it's long, narrow, and skinny, it's going to fold over. I'm going to use this step piece because I like the radiuses. I want to maintain that same sort of profile there as the back of the slide, so it looks like it belongs like that. That same radius. And there you have your holster pattern. You cut the whole shape out, that's your back piece. Once you have your back piece on the leather, you cut off the sweat shield, you turn it over. This is the front piece of your leather. You draw that on your leather, you cut that out, and then you can cut it off here and here, put that on the inside, and mark your glue lines so you know where to put glue on the front and back, and then you can also use that on the front side of your holster to use a stylus or something and scar the front of the leather so you know where to stitch. Now when I stitch, I usually start here in the center of the belt loop so I can go down, around, up, and back, and then hide my stitches behind the belt. The same with on this side. I can hide my stitches behind the belt. So I hope that explains it, and that's about 15 minutes worth of video, so I'll have to compress this quite a bit.